Nancy was looking forward to her wedding day, just like most women in love do when they decide to get married. Wedding planning was taking up a lot of the woman's time and energy, but she truly believed that it was all worth it. Nancy and Justin met about a year ago during Thanksgiving celebration at a mutual friend's country house. As soon as the young people started talking, they felt strong mutual feelings, which gave them hope for a possible relationship. By that time, Justin Roberts was already a promising businessman who owned a small firm located in the northern part of Chicago. Nancy was working as a florist in a flower shop and believed that it was the best job in the world. While other women wait to get flowers from their boyfriends, I am surrounded by beautiful roses, chrysanthemums, and lilies every day, Nancy used to joke. In all fairness, it should be said that Justin often bought flowers and all kinds of gifts for Nancy while they dated. However, for some unknown reason, the young businessman didn't seem to be too eager to introduce Nancy to his parents, and every time she brought up the subject, he used their lack of time as an excuse. "My parents live abroad, and they don't come to Chicago often," Justin once said. "I hope they'll at least come to our wedding," Nancy said, hopefully. But to the young woman's surprise, her fiancé couldn't give her an immediate answer to such a seemingly simple question. Instead, Justin looked rather uncomfortable and tried to switch the conversation to a different topic. He's probably worried. Men are often nervous when they're about to get married, Nancy thought, and decided not to dwell on it. Meanwhile, after that memorable conversation, Justin tried to steer clear of any topics that had anything at all to do with his parents. Time seemed to be flying by, and each turn of the clock hand was bringing the long-awaited wedding day closer. For the celebration, Justin rented out a restaurant which was located downtown and was considered one of the best in the area. When the reception was about to start, cars started pulling up to the restaurant and quickly filled up the empty parking lot. Some of the guests came by taxi or even on foot. But the most important news for Nancy was that Justin's parents had flown in from London and would be present at the wedding. "Wow, I will finally get to meet my mother and father-in-law," Nancy thought with a smile. The woman was raised at an orphanage. Thus, having grown up without a family, she felt that there wasn't anything more important in life. Accepting best wishes from friends and family who came to the wedding, Nancy kept looking for her groom's parents in the crowd. Finally, a dignified elderly couple approached the bride, which made the young woman's heart start pounding in her chest. "Here, meet my parents," Justin said, visibly nervous. Nancy smiled happily and greeted her relatives with a playful curtsy. The woman was very excited that Mr. and Mrs. Roberts had finally found the time to pay their son a visit and meet his new wife. However, to Nancy's great disappointment, her husband's parents turned out to be extremely reserved and uncommunicative people. Instead of talking to their son's bride, the couple exchanged a couple of insignificant phrases with her and sat down at their table. "They're a bit strange, apparently. I wonder if all rich people are so reserved. It's their son's wedding day after all. They could have at least pretended to care," Nancy caught herself thinking. Meanwhile, Justin was behaving as if nothing unusual was happening, and maybe he was just pretending that everything was fine. The celebration continued, and the young businessman realized that the guests shouldn't have to see sadness or anxiety in the eyes of the newlyweds. Nancy had also managed to pull herself together by that time, and tried not to dwell on the fact that her husband's parents could have shown more interest in her. Only having plunged headlong into the fun contests and dancing did the young woman finally manage to distract herself and put the thoughts of Diana and Alfred Roberts out of her head. The bride was a great dancer. Her movements were so natural and beautiful that the guests couldn't take their eyes off of her. Justin tried to keep up with his wife and dance with her throughout the evening. Having finished dancing to yet another song, Nancy headed for her table to have a drink of fresh juice. However, before the bride even had time to sit down, a strange-looking old man approached her. He was wearing a rumpled old shirt and some old, worn-out shoes. Nancy looked at the stranger in surprise and instinctively took a step back. The older man's face seemed vaguely familiar to the young bride, although the woman was confident that she'd never seen him before. The most surprising thing was that the poorly dressed old man just stood in front of Nancy and did nothing. "Good afternoon, sir. Is there something I can help you with?" the woman asked cautiously. The old man hesitated for a moment and then said softly, "It is unlikely that you'll be able to help me, miss. I came to the wedding to see my son and his bride. We haven't seen each other for a very long time." "Is your son here now? What's his name, sir? I know all the guests here, so I could help you find him," Nancy said with a smile and removed her veil because it was getting in the way. At that point, the young woman understood why the old man came to the restaurant. He was simply looking for his son. The old man coughed uncomfortably and took a moment to pluck up his courage before saying, "My son's name is Justin Roberts, miss." Needless to say, Nancy was very surprised to hear the old man's answer. "You can't be his father. Who's sitting at that table over there then?" The woman exclaimed in surprise and pointed to the couple she thought were Justin's parents. "I don't know who that is. I've never seen those people in my life. They're probably just some actors or something," the old man answered immediately, which shocked the bride even more. At that point, all kinds of thoughts started racing through Nancy's head, making her dizzy. Did Justin lie to me? But why would he? Trying to get a hold of herself and not lose her balance, the woman grabbed the edge of the table, but that didn't help much, and she slowly sank to the floor. Worried screams rang out throughout the restaurant, which Nancy could no longer hear as she had already fainted. When the woman woke up, she was already in the intensive care unit, which was so bright that it seemed to have blinded the unfortunate woman. Soon the door swung open and the elderly doctor came in. He was holding Nancy's chart in his hands. "Sir, what happened to me? I can't remember anything. Am I sick?" Nancy asked, having a hard time keeping her emotions in check. The doctor smiled somewhat strangely, kept silent for a little longer, and then said, "No, miss, you're not sick. You're pregnant. Even though you're not that far along yet, I'm still confident about it." "Pregnant? Wow, that's one special wedding gift," Nancy exclaimed, still unable to believe it was really happening. The doctor smiled and adjusted the glasses on his nose before advising the patient to try and avoid stress and eat more fruits and vegetables. "By the way, I almost forgot. You have some visitors. They've been waiting for about an hour for you to wake up," the doctor added, and having winked at the woman, went out of the room. It was only then that Nancy remembered what had happened at the wedding and what it was that caused her to faint. At that moment, the door opened once again and Justin came inside, along with the mysterious old man from the restaurant. Nancy raised her eyebrow inquiringly, but her husband immediately hurried to calm her down. He sat down by his wife and took her hand. "I'm sorry, honey. I should have told you the truth, but I was afraid. This is my father." Nancy turned pale once again, but this time she managed to keep it together, because deep down she now was ready for such a turn of events. As it turned out a little later, Alfred Roberts really was Justin's father, whom Justin tried to hide by hiring actors to play the role of his parents. At first, Nancy was shocked that her husband decided to lie to her on their wedding day. But when the woman found out the reasons that pushed Justin to do it, she immediately calmed down and even felt sorry for Justin and his family. In fact, Justin owed his financial success to his father, who started the business 30 years ago. Alfred's life was very different back then. He had a big house, an expensive car, and a beloved wife, Diana. Everything was going rather well until the moment that the businessman's wife found out that her chances of ever getting pregnant were slim to none. Alfred took the news very hard, while Diana didn't really see it as a problem. Having grown accustomed to living the rich life, the woman spent her husband's money left and right, choosing not to worry about the fact that her husband was spending more and more time and effort trying to earn it. Of course, Alfred tried to reason with his wife, but it was pointless. Time passed, but the couple still didn't have children. When the businessman turned 45, he realized that he would need a successor in a few years, someone he could pass his rapidly developing company to. The man was getting desperate, and having finally decided to adopt a child, started getting all the paperwork ready. When he was only one step away from adoption, it turned out that Diana was pregnant. That day, Alfred felt as if he was the happiest man alive. It seemed that everything in the businessman's life would work out now, and he would finally be able to find true family happiness. But things didn't go exactly as planned. Diana suffered from morning sickness during the entire pregnancy, and by the time she gave birth to Justin, she was so mad at Alfred that the poor man felt that she was trying to kill him with her eyes. But when the beautiful baby Justin was born, Diana changed, and for some time, she succumbed to the strongest feelings on earth, the feeling of motherhood. 5 years passed. Spending all of his time at work, Alfred barely ever saw his family, which couldn't but have a negative effect on his relationship with his wife. That was when Diana started cheating on her husband. She'd leave her son with a nanny to spend time with her young lover. The worst part for Alfred was the fact that he was among the last people to find out about it. By that time, Diana was ready to get divorced, and having started a huge fight, left her husband and son forever. It's a known fact that not many men can handle betrayal, so they often turn to the bottle to help them deal with the unfortunate situation. Alfred Roberts was no exception. He quickly started abusing alcohol and spent a lot of time in the company of rather questionable people. At that point, Diana was carelessly spending the money she got from her rich husband in the divorce. There was no one to help Alfred, and the man quickly slid to the very bottom of the social hierarchy. Since the man could no longer pay the nanny, Alfred left Justin in the care of his cousin and continued with his unseemly way of life. It was only thanks to the help of some distant relatives that Alfred's company was saved and kept afloat until his son came of age. When Justin grew up, he took over his father's company and brought it to a new level in record time. 2 years later, the young businessman met Nancy, who'd won his heart the very moment they met. Justin hadn't seen his father for about 15 years and had long considered him dead. Meanwhile, his mother forgot all about her son and moved to Mexico, where she found happiness with a young farmer who raised cattle. "Now you see why I didn't want to talk about my family?" the man asked, looking into the eyes of his beloved wife. Nancy nodded meekly and, brushing away her tears, turned to look at Alfred Roberts, who she now knew was really her husband's father. Remorse could clearly be read in the old man's eyes, which was what made him stop drinking and try to find his son. At first, Justin was very angry with his father, but then he realized what had been guiding his father all those years and decided to give their relationship another chance. Having enlisted the support of his wife, Justin moved his elderly father in with the family and surrounded him with the care that the old man had dreamed of during all those lonely years. But it was only 8 months later that Alfred Roberts found out what true happiness was, when Nancy gave birth to a beautiful baby, whom the loving parents named Peter. Now, when there was a baby in the Roberts family home, the life of the family was filled with boundless happiness, the kind that only those who value family and true love can ever feel.